Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Cuyahoga County Public Safety and Justice Affairs Committee meeting this Tuesday, September 17th. Roll call, please.
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Present.
Mr. Byrne.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. There is a quorum.
Thank you. Public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one, Ms. Rachel Reeves.
Okay, there you go. Good afternoon, County Council. My name is Rachel Reeves. I am a Cuyahoga County employee, and I also am the Vice President of ACME 1746, where we represent over 1,200 employees that work at Department of Children and Family Services, Department of Senior and Adult Services, and Jobs and Family Services. I spoke earlier this morning regarding our hybrid remote work policy that the county is implementing, and I was not afforded a lot of time, but I wanted to touch some things I didn't want to repeat. But I just wanted to go back and say that Cuyahoga Jobs and Family Services, we process about 4,000 to 3,000 SNAP and Medicaid applications on a monthly basis. Now, I don't know if you know, but we have 416 eligibility specialists processing the work for Cuyahoga County. And out of those 416 workers, we have 16 workers that work in the community. And when we say work in the community, they are spread out around the community where we can actually process the work. So when we talk about bringing individuals back in a remote work policy, we think about the challenges for the employees, the challenges in coordinating the in-office days, ensuring that it's enough office space. We also want to make sure that we say that the challenges are also ongoing health concerns that's going to be increasing when we actually come all into the building because COVID is not gone. While we're striving for fairness is crucial. What we say is this policy is not a one-size-fit-all policy. What we want to make sure that we mention is that a lot of the way that we work is based on what we have to work with, based on the inadequate phone systems that keeping our county residents on hold for long periods of a time. So just keeping that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Simon's in attendance?
And no one else is signed in.
No one else? Thank you. In your packets, we have the minutes of the July 9th meeting. If they're in order, I'll accept the motion in a second.
So moved.
Motion is second. Any further discussion on this? All in favor? Aye. Against? Thank you. 2024-0306.
Resolution number 2024-0306, authorizing an amendment to contract number 402 with Trinity Services Group for jail food services for the Cuyahoga County Jail System.
Good afternoon, Councilman Gallagher and council members. Chris Costin, Manager Business Services in the Sheriff's Department. Before you is a request for an amendment with our Trinity Services Group to add $1,582,200 and to extend time through December 31st, 2024. This current contract ends September 30th. By amending this contract as requested, it will allow the Sheriff's Department to complete the RFP for new food services contract and have the new contract in place on January 1st, 2025. A suspension of rules is requested at this time due to the timing of the contract end date. Thank you.
Questions?
Yes.
Hey, Chris. What happens on January 1st?
We are hoping to have that new vendor in place.
Okay, this is something I haven't heard about. Are we going to be getting some type of legislation on that?
Yes, an RFP was processed. The RFP closed July 1st. There were 3 proposals received. The scoring has recently been completed and an intent to award should go out shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
So this is to cover that period of time?
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
So to follow up on the chair, the 1.5 Is that additional money that is needed from this point on? And this,
Correct. That is to get us through the end of the year.
does that include just food or drinks or?
That includes all inmate jail food services that's provided by Trinity. There are some incidentals, like we may need new styrofoam trays that we have to buy if something happens to our dishwasher or anything. But yeah, that will get us through to cover the rest of the year.
That's quite a lot of, we're talking millions, right?
1.5 for 3 months.
So the total, when you say for a total not to exceed, so the whole annual year is 19 million? 19.3?
I don't have that. Right now, before any incidentals, we're averaging about 440, 450,000 a month in food services.
Okay, and that is 2 hot meals and a cold meal?
I believe so, yes.
A lot of money.
It was the original 4.
So the 19 is for 4 years? Oh, okay.
And this buys time if there is a transfer of businesses. It gives them time to come in and transfer over. So this is kind of belt and suspenders.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Pricey.
And obviously you want to get this moving.
Correct.
If everybody's comfortable, I'd recommend Resolution 2024-0306 to the full council under second reading suspension. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
A motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you.
Thank you.
2024-0315.
Resolution number 2024-0315, awarding a total sum not to exceed $10,000 to the National Council of Negro Women, Cleveland Section, for the Missing Women and Children Human Trafficking Awareness and Safety Series from the District 9 ARPA Community Grant Fund.
And who do we have today? Ladies, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Cuyahoga County Council. I am Monica McClellan, President of the Cleveland Section of National Council of Negro Women. Here today alongside me to present the Human Trafficking Project is Second Vice President and Social Justice Chair, Essence Doucette, Recording Secretary, Historian, and Social Justice Co-Chair, Marquise Frost. The mission of the National NCNW Social Justice Committee is to provide a framework for local sections to promote civic engagement in our communities and advance public policy that improves the conditions of women and families. NCNW fulfills this mission by developing programs that are grounded on NCNW priorities, in which we call the Core Four. These programs include economic empowerment, education, health equity, and social justice. The Missing Women and Children Human Trafficking Awareness and Safety Series is in alignment with all Core 4 principles, and I'll turn it over to Marquise.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the aim of our program is to combat the rising problem of missing women and children and sex trafficking through the creation of an awareness and safety series and civic engagement activities centered on current and pending Ohio anti-human trafficking legislation. In May of 2024, Attorney General produced the annual report entitled the Ohio Missing Children Clearinghouse Report, and the numbers are startling. In 2023, there were 22,374 missing persons. Of that number, 17,405 were children. There was an increase of 1,757 from the previous year, which was 2022. Now let's talk about our county. Cuyahoga County reported 2,959 missing persons in 2023. Cuyahoga County, however, has the second largest number of reported missing persons following Franklin County, which has a reported number of 3,252 missing persons. That's alarming. Now let's talk about Cleveland. We've talked about the county, let's look at Cleveland. Missing persons by the Cleveland Police District. There are 5 districts. In District 1, the ratio, so we have children and adults. We looked at children and both adults. So in District 1, we're talking about Edgewater, Coudell, West Boulevard, some of those neighborhoods. The rate of missing between women and children, adults and children is about the same. When you go to District 3, it's very alarming. The rate of children are missing for every one adult. There are 2 children that go missing. In that district, we're looking at Central, Downtown, Goodrich, Kirkland Park, Industrial Valley, Fairfax, some of those areas. And when you go to District 4, this is the most alarming for us. For every one adult, there are 3 children that go missing. So this is the number by Cleveland Police District. So we've stated that Cuyahoga County has the 2nd largest number of reported missing persons, following Franklin County, and human trafficking in the state of Ohio, it's the 3rd largest. And that number may have changed. We may be looking at number 4, but that's still high. That's in the top 10 when you look across the country. So the stats show that women and children are victims of sex trafficking at a disproportionately higher rate than any other group, for a multitude of social and economic factors. Historically, victims of and survivors of sex trafficking have been criminalized by the justice system and have not received the justice and care needed to become healthy, whole, and productive members of the society. So that despite the passage of Ohio laws such as Jonathan's Law, which is House Bill 571, which requires law enforcement agencies to have policies and procedures in place regarding missing persons, and the Safe Harbor Act, which protects minor victims from prosecution and increases the penalties for victims, for the convicted sex traffickers. More work needs to be done to address these issues. Essence?
Our program has 6 main. Excuse me, can you speak into the microphone?
There you go. Okay.
Our program has 6 main objectives. First and foremost, our program objective is to increase community awareness and education around missing women and children, human trafficking, and sex trafficking. We also aim to educate the community on how they can be safe and how to identify trafficked individuals. Additionally, it's really important to us to make sure that we raise awareness around current and pending anti-human trafficking legislation to the community. In order for our community to be effective, we have to make sure that we stay abreast of all of the latest information around human trafficking. And to that end, we intend to attend both summits and human trafficking conferences virtually and in person as those opportunities become available. We also would like to be able to create a short PSA or short film that will highlight missing women and children and human trafficking for educational purposes. And lastly, in addition to raising awareness around pending and current legislation, we want to make sure we can have the community come in and engage in activities related to that current pending legislation in dialogues with those bill creators like Representative Josh Williams, Rick Santucci, and State Senator Stephanie Coons. So who is this program going to serve? Our focus will be on serving the communities and districts with the highest reported missing persons and the broader Cuyahoga County district. It is also our goal to serve approximately 800 people annually by hosting 8 programs from October 2024 to June 2025 with a target audience of at least 100 guests per program. Our long-term and ongoing strategy is that this program will be a catalyst for future initiatives providing a suite of wraparound services and resources for trauma-informed mental health counseling, assistance with housing, job training, drug addiction, record expungement, and other referral services for recovered human trafficking victims. Because all too often, human traffic victims who are recovered, they do not have the resources they need at their disposal. Our goal is to serve as a liaison to connect those survivors with the resources and referral services to help them rebuild their lives and to provide them with the support they need so that they can thrive. The budget for our program is very lean. We intend to host 8 programs. Most of them will be in public. All of them will be in public venues, but half of them will be in venues that are free, like at the public library. So we won't be spending a lot of money to host our venues. We also would like to provide printed material and resources at these events, so we don't intend to spend any more than $100 because most people utilize electronic devices and QR codes will be sufficient. As I mentioned in one of our goals is to create a PSA or short film, and we've priced that at about $2,500. We also have some expenses related to advertising and marketing. That's the creation of flyers, ad buys, and radio time. We would like to provide some personal safety devices at our programs like flashlights, mace, and maybe personal alarms. Light refreshments will be served, nothing major, but like water, snacks, and money for napkins, tablecloths, and such. And then a small miscellaneous expense line item for $400. This totals $10,000. This concludes our presentation. We'll now open it up for questions. I believe we have a couple of minutes available.
Questions for ladies?
Thank you.
This is a good day for you. I know Ms. Turner would have been here if she could. She was unavailable. Well, if there aren't any,
Yeah, I have one. Through the chair, to the young ladies, is this a new pilot that the National Congress of Negro Women they have added, or is this something that you have done in the past in terms of the missing women in human trafficking?
I can answer that. This is Essence, Social Justice Chair, National Council of Negro Women. This is something new that we want to be able to do. We've been doing a lot of research. In fact, my co-chair, Marquise Frost, recently, you want to tell them about the summit? Okay, and the conference?
Oh, yeah. I attended the Human Trafficking Summit hosted by the Attorney General, and it was a really eye-opening experience. It's great because people want to work on this. There's a lot of collaborators that want to work on this. We just have to connect. So it's a wealth of information. Met a lot of people there. We have another one coming. There's another one, the International Human Trafficking Summit that's coming up this week, and I'll be attending that. And we're going to be learning more about human trafficking on the broader spectrum, but we'll have a chance to look at international trafficking, what happens in our city, our county, other cities. So it's going to be great. And also working with or meeting trafficked and folks that have been trafficked, I would say survivors and folks that are thriving right now. So it's going to be good. It's going to be good.
This really, really saddens me to think that this happens to individuals. And it can happen to anyone that we know. So I'm all about prevention. I just was wondering if you had any strategies on, I know it's a big hill to climb and everybody has to do it in order to prevent this from occurring, but any educational tips or anything that you'll be working with school children or things like that to make them aware?
Yes, that's the plan, is to invite some of those 800 folks that we'll be touching will be youth in the communities, because it's going to be very important. We're hoping to connect with the Cleveland schools, East Cleveland City schools, Shaker schools, schools in our county to bring focus on this issue, because it can affect anyone, anywhere.
It's really sad because these are predators, and we know as being young women, once in our lives, we don't we can see the Lifetime movies, we can see the stuff that happens, but we never believe it's going to happen to us. So just
And boys and men are trafficked as well, so it's, that's a misconception that they're not, but they are as well, so,
thank you. Thank you for your,
Well,
thank you.
I guess I just have to add, the news today is, Combs, right, his arrest, am I wrong, for sex trafficking? Do you know about that? And that just happened, it broke this morning, the story of sex trafficking of boys. They're involved in this. This large-scale operation that you'll learn about.
Yeah, it often happens in plain sight. And that's one of the things that we want to make sure that we bring awareness to. You'd be surprised how many young girls and young men you walk by who are being trafficked and you have no idea. They look normal, but there are clues, there are red flags. And so this education series is about turning everyone into a watchdog, if you will. Everyone being keenly aware of those signs so that we can all help bring these young women and children home.
through the chair, I'm sure you're familiar with the Renee Jones Empowerment Center. I do a domestic violence series every year, and she was one of the speakers. She has a nonprofit here, and she works directly with the women and children and that are being trafficked here in Cuyahoga County. So she's very, very well established. So I would just say you should definitely reach out to her for pointers or whatever the case may be. And yeah, she brought some presenters that weren't that had gotten out of that life cycle, and it was very, very much an eye opener. And I think that we're, even as being the chair of Health and Human Services, we're seeing a lot more cases of families
Yes.
doing it to their own kids.
Familial trafficking, yeah.
Really deep.
That's one of the things that we learned about in the conference, familial trafficking. It goes undetected a lot of times, so, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an important endeavor that you're taking on here, and anything you can do to bring about the awareness is helpful, because this is definitely an epidemic. Certainly have my support.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have a lot of resources in the county, and we'd start with the prosecutor.
Yes.
I'm sure he'd be more than happy to help you. I don't want to speak for him, but
Yes.
I know unfortunately they deal with this day in and day out. Anything further? With ARPA funds, we go through 3 readings, so if everybody's comfortable, no further questions, I'll accept the motion for Resolution 2024-0315 to the full council for second reading.
So moved.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Thank you, ladies. Good luck.
Thank you.
2024-0341.
Resolution number 2024-0341, making awards to various providers in the total amount not to exceed $800,000 for trauma-informed respite and youth care center services.
Who might we have today?
Good afternoon, Sharon Allen, Juvenile Court Contract Specialist. I'm here to present for a trauma-informed respite and youth care centers contract. The vendor shall provide a trauma-informed response to youth arrested by a law enforcement officer in lieu of secure detention center admission in a trauma-informed group home setting for a term starting July 1st, 2024 and ending on June 30th, 2026. The funding for this contract shall not exceed $569,372.92. This contract is 100% funded by the Reclaim Grant.
Okay, questions? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, if she could explain the Reclaim Grant again to me. I don't know if I've heard this before.
Good afternoon, Thomas Pipkin, Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court. Reclaim is funding that we receive from the state of Ohio, the Ohio Department of Youth Services. We utilize those grant funds to provide services to juvenile court involved youth. Pretty much essentially all of our services are covered through our Reclaim grant outside of our traditional residential.
So this 800,000 is funds that are part of the Reclaim grant and that will get reimbursed?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Further questions? Hearing none, and looking at the dates, we have to move on this.
Yes.
So you would request that. If everybody's comfortable moving forward with Resolution 2024-0341 to the full council under second reading suspension, I'll accept the motion in a second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Against? Good luck.
Thank you.
2024-0342.
Resolution number 2024-0342, authorizing a revenue-generating agreement with City of Cleveland, Cleveland Municipal Court in the amount not to exceed $2,581,820 for legal services for indigent persons.
Good morning. Colin Sweeney, Chief Public Defender. So this is, as council knows, the City of Cleveland does not have a separate public defender's office. So for, roughly 22 years, they've contracted with the county public defender's office to provide those services. So this was a continuation agreement with the City of Cleveland. And I just wanted to walk through the timeline just real briefly because obviously this contract is for 2024, and as council knows, it's in September. So why I wanted to explain the process for why it got here. But this is a revenue-generating contract. So the City of Cleveland pays the full amount of the representation. The county gets reimbursed from the state of Ohio. Passes through most of that reimbursement to the City of Cleveland, but keeps 3% administrative fee. So the legislation was originally introduced into the City of Cleveland in November of last year at a pre-budget hearing. And it wasn't until their budget hearing in February, because they do it in the following year for that year, that it got approved, the funding that is, which increased to $2.58 million. Then the contract language, which ultimately was mostly unchanged, went to the City of Cleveland Law Department, where it remained for quite a long time. We eventually got the contract back. They certified the funds in July. We submitted it to the State Public Defender Commission, which we have to. Both myself and the commission chairperson signed it. We sent it back to the County Law Department. And went to the Board of Control, where it's been referred to council. I would just note that the City of Cleveland has paid on the contract up through the end of July, about $1.4 million, and that the administrative fee generated by that's about $60,000. And so this contract is for this year, and there's a one-year renewal for 2025, which will only require sort of signature of the parties.
Questions? Hearing none. We like to hear revenue generating.
I appreciate it.
Even if it is on a low level.
Sure.
We don't hear that often.
That's why I emphasized it.
And at times dictate that we move this forward, correct?
Correct.
If everybody's comfortable, I'll recommend Resolution 2024-0342 to the full council under second reading suspension. I'll accept the motion in a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Against? All done.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Under discussion items, we have two. We'll start with the sheriff.
Good afternoon, Councilman.
Welcome, Sheriff. Let's,
Yes, sir.
let's start, with the overtime. I got your response to Mr. Miller's request.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Costin's response. Take us through that.
Okay, actually, the slides that I sent her a little bit earlier speak to that, so if I could just walk through it, it'll all be covered there.
Yeah, as long as we
Okay,
get there.
gotcha. Can we, slide one, please? Oh, yeah. No, not here. Someone took it. Legs. Cleverly concealed. Thank you. All right, there we go. Okay. First, welcome back, Safety Committee. Thank you for having me here today and for your interest, and certainly Mr. Miller for reaching out to us. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago. We went over a couple of these things. Very important to us, and it's a 1 year actually touchback that we're having that we discussed a year ago, sir. So here we are. As we go through it, I'd like to just kind of walk you through our overtime comparison by cost. And this one just breaks it down by group. The four major operations in the Sheriff's Department, obviously, Sheriff's Operations is like the headquarters administrative component. Law enforcement entails the deputy sheriff's functions and court security, those kind of things. Jail, as you know, is our biggest operation. 2/3 of the operation are in the jail, and that is where the biggest workforce is. That's where the biggest support is necessary, and that's where the biggest liability is, because we are in charge of nearly 1,600 lives there that are in our care. And Protective Services, as we know, is the unit that protects all of our employees and citizens at county facilities and buildings such as this one, and doing a terrific job there also. So if you add those up, the first column is 2023 year-to-date cost at this time, and 2024. So you see there's a little bit of a difference there. It's an increase of 11%. A vast majority of that is attributed to the changes in the collective bargaining agreements. The next, right beneath it in the yellow, orange, and light blue, just speaks to the overtime costs per each one of the units. And you see the deputy sheriff's about $4 million. Correction officer, again, largest part of the sheriff's department, $8.1 million, and security about $1.7. Speaks to the protective service officers. So next slide compares it by hours. Here's where, again, it's 2023, 2024. I'm not going to read you the numbers. You can read those. But the last column speaks to the translation of those numbers into full-time equivalent positions, if we were to run the math on that. Is that to say that staffing to those exact levels would save that? That would suggest it. In actual execution, numbers might be a little bit different, but it kind of gives you a good idea of why those numbers are generated. The bottom three columns, yellow, orange, and blue again, give you what those hours are specifically for the 2024 for deputy sheriff, correction officer, and protective service officer. Historical overtime, very important because, again, in the last, we just went back to 2021, but it's important to see kind of what the trajectory has been, what the trend has been. And we know that with the not only just things going up, but also the collective bargaining agreements taking place, that number would escalate. So if we look at 2021, about 14 million, and then in 22 it jumped to 19, 23 it was 19.3, and our projection for 2024 is about 21 million overall, and that's the amount of hours, and that's obviously with all operations included in the sheriff's department. So no surprise there that it's not that far off from what 2022 and 23 were. And I can tell you that, well, I'll mention some mitigations here a little bit later on another slide. Overtime by division. The first part of this column, we're not going to go through everything, but I just want you to have an idea what it is. Let's just go through the second column. 2023 actual for that position. What did we spend there? Let's just go down to example deputy sergeants. In 2023, it was 513,000. Through last pay was 479. which is another projected 182 coming up, just sliding down that line, and that's Deputy Sheriff Sergeant is the sixth line down, I'm sorry. As we get to our total projection, that's what it's going to be, and that's going to be the increase over last year. Just to give you an idea, for each one of those columns, that's what it is. The box beneath it, it's a little smaller, but I'll walk you through that one also. The projection is there, very, very clear, but when we say built in, that is the overtime that is contractually put into the contracts that we have for staffing in, whether it's the correctional center or whether it's the deputy side of the house, service officers. But it's important to note that there's a difference between mandated and built in. Mandated, when we speak of, we have to have deputies on hand to convey many of our residents from the facility who are going to go, say, to the hospital, they had chest pains or whatever, they have to go. That's a mandate. We have to do that. It's not optional. The built-in overtime is something that's traditionally been done, built into the projected salary and budgetary expenditure, and that's something that's always been done in certain positions. And that comes out because of the scheduling. They went to 12-hour shifts. I don't know how many years ago, but that's probably when they started factoring that in. So I just want to bring your attention to that, because there's some of those things which are already, and I hate to use the word built in, but that's the word for that, are already included. Despite all of the efforts at mitigation and reduction, there are some expenditures there which are just part of the scheduling. And that's something that's nothing new, nothing under this administration. It's been in there for probably decades. So, and that certainly gives you a little more insight into how those numbers are computed. So the first part of the chart lets you know the actuals in those different positions, because everyone says, oh, I have a friend who's a corporal in a jail. Well, now you know the corporal's in a jail. Last year was $506,000 overtime. We know that this year they're projected $591,000. So that increase, 17%, we can attribute that to collective bargaining agreements, for the most part. About 43 corporals is about the same. So just for you to have an idea on that, where that comes from. Next slide speaks to medical transports. Medical transports is the number one thing which drives the overtime, particularly on the deputy side of the house. We did go to fact-finding with the deputy sheriff's contract, and as a result of that, the fact finder recommended that we staff a car taking someone to the hospital with a deputy sheriff and a correction officer. So we're currently in the process of securing the training by the Ohio Peace Officer Training Academy, so we can train, arm, and equip the correction officers to conduct that. That will certainly result in a reduction on the deputy side of the house, but those transports must go forth. Someone has to go to the hospital, it's a medical need, they're going to have to go, whether it's an ambulance we're escorting or whether it's someone who has something that's not as severe, but they must go now, and they put them in a police car and take them to a local hospital. So that's that's what drives those costs up. I just want to bring your attention to the spikes we've had here. April, you see the numbers there, 189,000. As of July, we're 173,000. But what's important, if you look at the trips, the lower right-hand number, 838. Year to date, we have conveyed residents of the correctional facility for medical care 838 times. That is a significant number. And that is despite probably the best attempts on staff medical to mitigate whatever the medical care was. And despite us trying to schedule as best we can, those must go. Whether it's on overtime or not, those must go out. Obviously, we staff to the best of our ability, and we're unable to do that. Of course, then it generates overtime. So that is the one uncontrollable factor that we have to respond to. In this business, we try to project as best we can and prepare as best we can, and we go on probabilities wherever possible. But however, just now I can tell you, speaking of a real-world example, I can tell you that today we have 4 ERs in the last 2 hours. This is earlier last night. 4 ERs, emergency runs in the last 2 hours, on top of 4 details, meaning there are 4 people who are at the hospital currently being seen, guarded by a deputy sheriff, and there are 4 others who are being transported separately who require deputy sheriffs for escorts. So you got to do the math on those. But this is the slide on medical transports, which is important because, again, that's the one variable we do not control and we must respond to. Next slide just breaks it down by category. Ambulance, obviously you call EMS, someone has severe chest pains, transported by a deputy, meaning that, again, it's not as severe, so a sheriff's car will be conveying the individual. And the last one's a hospital detail. Somebody is being committed to the hospital, and they must remain there for their care. And obviously, if they're in custody, well, then we have to maintain a safe and secure environment, which is a function of custody, care, and control, but that's where we are. So you can total those up. Not going to do it for you, but the numbers are compelling. Again, we come to the 838 because that's just part and parcel of what we're doing. Staffing summary, just to give you a snapshot of kind of where we are on staffing. Some of the vacancies, obviously, we're working on. We just had, we're going to open the deputy hiring again. We were fully staffed until last week. And on the correction side, we have some openings we continue to fill. And what I am preparing for you, and had this discussion with Councilman Miller, by our next meeting, we'll have a breakdown of not only how many people left and how many people came in, but I know my Chief Reese made a great point. What's important is to see how many of the people we hired this year, as an example, are still here today. There may be others who left because of retirement, termination, some other reasons that they transitioned on, but it's important to know if our recruitment efforts, and I know they're fairly robust, did those people remain with us? Because we have had, and I've learned a lot in this past year here, we have had situations where we hire new employees, they go through the training, they get to work, they go to lunch, and they never come back because they realize this isn't for me. Clearly, this is a job which requires a suitable individual, and I respect the fact that, hey, they determined this is not for me. That is probably a failure on our side, because we need to set the right expectation for the individual and make them aware of what they're expecting in this job. This job isn't for everybody. So that's something that we are absolutely doing better. And by the time we meet again, I will have those numbers for you so you can see. If I get them before then, I'll probably give them to you before, and so you have them. But so you see what our recruitment efforts are and how many of our people who are joining us this year or as soon as possible are remaining and are not the ones that are leaving. So you'll have that here. The next slide talks about the revenue. I see you mentioned to the public defender about revenue, and I must say it's an important slide also because we do generate some, and there's a few other topics on the table that we're discussing. We are not mercenaries, but sometimes revenue is a part and parcel of our operation. Cost of doing business, as you can read down here, the civil warrants, and that's obviously for sheriff sales and so on, that we have about $2 million. We know we contract with 10 municipalities, 11, I think it is, for $2.9 million. The phone commission, the FCC changed the rule on the breakdown, so it's a little bit reduced, but still it's something coming in. When you see healthcare, that's through a grant with Metro Hospital for psychotropic drugs, so that's about $111,000 coming in there. Task force operations, and I had to explain that for you, kind of know that the work that our people do, and there is some, obviously, something that comes back from the seizures, forfeitures, and those kinds of activities. Police services, as an example, working the Browns games, it's a 100% reimbursable, but it does come back and it goes to general fund. It just doesn't come back to the sheriff's department, but just so you're aware kind of what that's from. And on this slide for 2023, it shows the city of Cleveland is zero, but if you go down to 2024, that's when they were billed, so that's how much we're anticipating from the city of Cleveland. And grand total for this year is about $5.2 million that we're contributing to the general fund, and I think that's a little conservative, but okay, always better be a little conservative and safe than over overpromised there. So before I go on and ask you for questions, I do want to mention the numbers where we stand today as far as the overtime generated, which we've talked about before, which we projected a year ago, and we're pretty much spot on with the projection, actually. And the revenue, all this is despite us running a 24/7 operation, which must continue, which addresses needs in various levels. Our people, number one, save lives. Our people are tasked with maintaining the life of about 1,600 people every day in the correctional center. Our staff must represent and support our judges' operations in 3 separate facilities where justice is being served. Our people represent our agency on many, many different task forces, which helps other local enforcement efforts in reducing violent crime. And that's something that we do by serving on the ATF CJIC and those things. But I will tell you, our number of deputies assigned to task forces is actually less than it was under Sheriff McFall, bless his soul, which is going back a ways. So I just want to let you know that we highlight that, but it's not like we said, hey, throw 50 guys at it. The right people in the right place can have the right influence and make sure that we push in the right direction to support our partners in violent crime reduction. So we are making a difference. On the other side, I have a group of very motivated supervisors and leaders who came up with some really novel ideas that I'll be presenting to you probably before the next time we meet, because we're going to have some really good stuff here as far as rearranging some shifts and how we're going to move some things around. Some things will go down because it's just the nature of the change and of repurposing some individuals. So I can tell you that that is going to be a huge change. The field operations unit has been a stand-up unit trying to support everything. The entire department has raised their hand and said, hey, we'll come help on. We've worked with different models where units come down on a certain day, where units send one person every day, various models. At the end of the day, the variables we do not control drive the overtime. So knowing that, we went ahead and retooled, and they came up with a few models they presented to me yesterday where we can readjust some schedules and make it a little better with the home life balance, but also making sure that we are staffed up in certain days of the week where the spikes are. Back to Councilman Miller's point, you know, what is the data showing? The data is showing that particularly as we move to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, our numbers go up. For whatever reason, whether it's the moon or something in the air, as we near those times, not that they don't happen on Tuesday nights, but as we near those days, particularly those runs do go up. So making some adjustments. We're in discussions with the union on that to make sure that the union will support, and we've received very positive feedback on the adjustments we're looking to make. And I know that deputies watching this at home are kind of wondering they're pretty aware of what they are. And by and large, there is support for that because it addresses a few things. So I want to just make sure you're aware that despite all this going on, we're looking at positive changes to make sure that we address that as best we can, create a safe environment, give the appropriate service while being as fiscally sound as possible, given the instability, not instability, but the inability to predict what's going to come. When the phone rings, who's going to have to go and who's going to take them. So with that, any questions for me?
Sheriff, when it comes to overtime, is there such a thing as forced overtime?
I don't know if forced is the right term, just mandated, so yes, sir, it could be forced overtime.
Mandated?
Yeah, yes, sir. There is a...
that account for where we're at?
I think that the mandated overtime, sir, any overtime that worked on there is mandated, because if not, we wouldn't be doing it. So the numbers that I gave you here, that accounts for mandated overtime. There is no discretionary overtime. Well, we think we should do, no, we have to do it because we have to staff. I wish it was a little discretionary. We would err a little bit on the side of not so much. It's mandatory because we must respond.
What, when we provide things such as parades and funerals, things like that, do we get paid back for that? Or is that just a service that we provide?
Because normally not, sir, we have the special deputy unit, which are mostly retired officers, some not retired, who are not what we call payroll deputies. They're not on our payroll. They are specials. Think of an auxiliary officer, and they do a super job of helping us support the sheriff's department and represent the county at various parades and funerals and things like that. And they do it as part of their contribution. They're required to work 16 hours a month in support doing those kind of functions.
So they're not paid?
Not paid, sir.
So that doesn't cost anything for us?
Correct.
Okay. On your reply to Mr. Miller, it was suggested there'd be cost savings with the medical and the food. How do we predict that? I don't remember anything going down. That's my only concern.
Councilman, we have looked at these two, which are the two largest contracts that we have in the sheriff's department, meaning the food and the medical service. And in this past year that I've been here, my team has gotten the microscope out and looked at this very, very closely. And there's some efficiencies to be gained. And there are also, when we talk about contract management, if a contractor is supposed to provide X, we can't accept Y. And in discussion with the law department and with the prosecutor's office, we have the ability to ensure that that contractor is going to deliver whatever is in writing in that contract. Anything short of that sometimes can transfer to extra load for our personnel, which comes at a cost. So we would be paying double. So in essence, by ensuring that our contractors are adhering to the contract and delivering what they should be, there would be a savings there. Because as we look at different things, in both of those sides, medical and food, there are some things that we're addressing that will be in our next contract. RFPs are out, but you know where everything really matters is when you get to the contract and put it in black and white, and now we know exactly what to ask for and what should be expected.
As you understand it, as we sit here today, taking out what overtime should have been in the budget initially that was taken out, I'm not discussing that. That's not ours to find, that's the administration's to find. I'm sure they're going to have to find that. What are we over on overtime and all the other things that we provide that aren't in the budget?
I think we're going to be...
I should say, or costs, not just specifically overtime. What are we out that we're providing that wasn't in the budget?
I think that the biggest driver here, sir, is overtime, and it's going to be probably $12-14 million.
That was what was taken out, right? I think it was 19 million.
19, and then you added some, and as we're working towards it, I don't think it's 19 now. It's a little bit less because you added some money to it after our first initial round.
Right. I think the total was 8.
I believe so.
And it was supposed to be 20, so we were 12 short. So you're at 13 now.
That's about right, sir.
13, 14. So what wasn't in the budget specifically that we provide that we're not getting paid for? And if it's overtime, if it's services, if it's whatever, our guys are out doing whatever.
It would be...
I'm not just identifying the downtown patrol. Anything that we do outside of our core mission,
Right.
What are we paying for that's not in the budget?
Council, I don't think there's anything we're paying that's not in the budget. I think everything is itemized in the budget.
So the only thing you would say would be the downtown patrol then?
And that is I think I shared with Council Miller, and I shared also that's a change we're making. It was a proof of concept unit, which worked exceptionally well. And then we're morphing that into a version of the impact unit, discussed it with the executive, and right now and with the deputies themselves, and they had some recommendations on renaming. So we're kind of going through that right now, a few acronyms to make it represent exactly the functions that they do. And they're going to deliver that countywide. And I'm going to inform the Cuyahoga County Police Chiefs Association at our meeting on Thursday.
See, where I'm going with this is we should not be over budget, period, ever. And things fluctuate with you because of the services that we do provide. with the jail and other things. I understand that. But we really shouldn't be out there providing anything outside our core mission until we get our house in order. Our house is not in order. Our house is messed up. Yet we're still doing other things outside of the budget, which is never happened since I've been here, never happened since I've been an elected official, never happened since I worked for the county and the state, never happened. That leads to investigations.
Okay.
So is that the only number, that 1.2 or 1.3, that's being provided for the quote-unquote downtown patrol that'll be morphed I think, more fairly and efficiently into an impact unit? That's it?
Councilman, that's the only thing I can think of. I have to ask my staff here. I'm fairly sure, but
Okay.
is there anything else that? Is there anything else in the budget that I missed that's not? Just go ahead.
Good afternoon, Council. Donna Cleel, Sheriff's Finance Manager. So I think what you're asking is, when this budget was first created, we were running about a $19 million annual overtime. They gave us 8. We knew, and even we discussed, we were going to be, so if that's what you're asking, what wasn't in the budget right off the rip? It was that, the only thing that like you had said, is the $1 million for the downtown safety patrol costs. Other than that, everything else we've been running every year. Right. And then another thing that's not in this, and I just realized it's not in there, is we're projecting about $2 million in medical transport costs, but the outpatient runs aren't in there. Those are about another $1 million a year in deputy costs. So we're paying $3 million a year in deputy medical transport costs total, plus all of the built-in and mandated. But again, what wasn't in the budget was about $12 million right from the start. So the only thing that wasn't the anticipated cost was the downtown safety patrol, which is about $1 million. But other than that, and Councilman Gallagher, you knew that right off the rip. We
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we knew that.
The whole right. We discussed it.
We actually found it.
Right, and you gave us $8 million, but
it wasn't told to us in the budget. It was inserted somewhere. We found it.
right,
So
exactly.
then we provided, I think, 2 or 6 in the
You
administration
provided
gave-
8 total,
Between the
but
two.
historically, we've been running like 19.
Right,
19.
so we knew, I
Yes.
know that's going to be a problem. I know that.
Yes.
That's what I'm not talking about. Actually, what I'm trying to get at is when we have this problem, we should be managing ourselves better. You know, I mean, my parents would take me to Sears back in the day, and I wanted that chocolate chip cookie. We didn't have the money for it. Or if we got a chocolate chip cookie, I had 5 sisters, so I got a 1/6 of a cookie and was happy. But that's when we had. So I'm just saying, we've got to control the budget management as best we can. And I would love to provide anybody in the county the necessary tools for their safety if it's manageable. This is not manageable. And that's been my position all the way along. And now we're coming to that point where I knew that you would be coming back. And I said it, I said, you're coming back.
Yes,
You're going to come back. It's impossible not to come back. And I don't know where to find 14 million. I don't. I read in the paper yesterday that they said that Mr. Chambers was saying we're 11 million over budget. Well, no, I don't even think he's anticipating the 14. So it's I'm not going to say it's a crisis level, but it's at a disturbing level for me because we've never dealt with this before. We really haven't.
And I do understand. I will say this, though. I see the sheriff and the chief and the whole command staff working very hard with these CBA agreements. Some of these raises that were given were huge, and not only huge, they were retro.
Right.
And so they're doing their best to try to find, like, efficiencies where they can put manpower and cover all the posts and cut things, because with these big raises and this built-in overtime, there's just certain things that are out of the sheriff's control. So they are working very hard to try to create some efficiencies where they can. I mean, I will say that with these raises, to be only another million, what was it, like another 1.5, 1.7 in projected overtime this year from last year, with all these raises that went in, I mean, the way we're looking at it, that's not that bad. But that's, you're talking to an accountant here.
Right, and I understand that, that, we've dealt with that. And we had one emergency, I think, since we've been here, where we had to find money, which was not very easy to do, so we took care of that. All I'm just saying is, we got to be more calculating, we got to be more diplomatic as far as what we can and can't do to those people that are asking, and I'm sure they're asking everywhere you go, they're going to ask you for something. I would, if I were in their shoes. And with the history of us at one time providing that service, which was a home run.
Correct.
But it was budgeted. So that was my concern then. My concern's been realized all the way till now. I know now that they're going to have to get busy finding some money here to cover those overtime costs. And not that the new jail is going to be a save-all, but it's going to help. I'm convinced of that, of everything that I've heard, unless every expert's wrong. So I just want to get there. So I think that's an important part of this plan. But as we go forward, and I would imagine you're going to be coming to Mr. Miller and asking for adjustments. We're going to have to be very specific on where this money's going, where in the budget, how it's being used. It's because that's not being done right now, on top of everything else. And across the board, we raised everybody up as best we could because we had to. Because it's hard to keep good people employed.
Yes.
It's a strange time. Any other questions for the sheriff? Yep, Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I got to say that I totally support your statement that we really have to focus on core operations and focus on getting the operations, particularly at the jail, working at the level that we have in mind. When it comes to the overtime, my best understanding is that there isn't any other county in the state that even has a quarter of the amount of sheriff's office overtime that we have. And I just wanted to ask if you could give us some flavor or intuitive understanding as to why our overtime costs are so high in comparison with other counties.
Through the chair to the councilman, thank you, sir. That's, I'm not sure what the other sheriff's departments are. I can speak for ours. I can tell you there's a couple of factors, particularly as they relate to the correctional facility. Inmates from Cuyahoga County make up the majority of the inmates in the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Control. Majority. Inmates in Cuyahoga County make up the majority of the violent offenders sentenced to ODRC. So it gives you an idea as to what our staff deals with. Inmates in Cuyahoga County have greater medical needs than inmates anywhere else in the state. It's just a fact of life. We talk about, we've been to Franklin County multiple times. They have a new facility. We went there and learned a lot about their operations, a lot about their programming, really good stuff going on there. But part of that discussion was the quality of the health of the residents we have in Cuyahoga County Correctional Center as opposed to others, Franklin County being another urban area. That's why the medical runs are significantly higher here. Number one, because of the illness factor, it just tends to be higher. I mentioned the fact of violence and aggression of inmates because it speaks, number one, to the professionalism and strong work done by our correction officers and correctional staff, but also the need to maintain that safety in that space with the transports to the hospital, with the appointment on Tuesday morning to whatever clinic, all those things. And that is what drives it, sir. That if that component was removed from the sheriff department, as an example, if we moved into Metro Hospital tomorrow and no longer had to do these transports, that overtime would plummet. So that is what drives the overtime here.
Mr. Chairman, Sheriff, one other thing. you pointed out how in the current year's budget that the overtime was budgeted for considerably less than you knew that it was going to be. I think if budgeting is going to work, that we have to budget realistic and achievable numbers, so that you have a budget that you feel you can work with, and that you think you can with a little bit of luck and no outrageous surprises, that you can operate within the budget amount. And so what I'm requesting as we head into the budget update for 2025, that you work with the administration and work to come up with a proposal for the sheriff's office that reflects your needs and reflects what's doable and covers expenses that you know that you're going to have, and that focuses on basics.
Through the chair, thank you, Councilman, and that's why the fiscal staff are very diligent in maintaining those projections, because those projections are based on fact. It's unlikely that we go from what we went through the charts earlier and all of a sudden just plummet. So we will continue to produce those, and also work with the executive staff on seeing where we can optimize, where we can streamline, and what we can reduce despite the soaring cost. No problem. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sheriff, how are you today?
Good. Yourself, sir?
Good. Just a couple questions, clarification. I'm relatively new at this. I haven't been through this process before. Talking about the medical transports, and you've got three categories: the ambulance, transported by the deputy, and hospital detail. When it's determined that they go by ambulance, are they assisted by how many sheriffs, deputies, or whatever? Two?
Through the chair to the councilman, two, sir. Ideally, two deputies in that situation. One would drive the car behind them. The other one would be inside the ambulance. And going forward, once everyone's fully trained, sometimes a correction officer, once everyone's fully trained, it'll absolutely be a correction officer, trained, equipped, et cetera, with a deputy. But it's two individuals.
And when they're transported by the deputy?
Two individuals also.
Two also. And then when there's assigned hospital detail?
That one deputy, and there's a rotation to that. There's a supervisory factor in that, and we're not going to say, okay, Deputy Jones is there with this resident for the next 12 hours at Metro Hospital. We have a model for that, which we're not going to make public for safety purposes, but there is a model for addressing that.
Understood. And then you stated early on that the must go is determined by staff. Do you track how many are either requested to go and are denied going, or how is that determination made?
Through the chair to the councilman, denials I don't have, sir. I'd have to work on that, but I do have Special Assistant Rapecki has done a great job of compiling a list in concert with the fiscal staff and the correctional staff about what the cause was, whether it was stomach pain or back pain or foot pain, whatever it was, headache, severe headache, et cetera, whatever it might be. Depending on the criticality of it, it was call 911, have an ambulance come, or, hey, can two deputies take this individual to get some service?
And last question, it seems like you said that high percentage from Cuyahoga County.
Yes, sir.
Compared to some of the others. Do we use the same threshold, same determination, or does the other sheriff's departments use the same determination or thresholds when they transport prisoners to med centers, hospitals, whatever?
Through the chair to the councilman, I think that becomes a medical decision, and whatever, I'll use the term risk, that the medical provider is willing to accept. This individual presents with these symptoms, and we could probably just put him under observation for 4 hours and give him some whatever and see if he's okay, or he presents with these symptoms and needs to go to the ER and get checked out there to make sure nothing else is going on, there'll be a medical determination. We would not be driving that. Whoever the medical provider is for that facility would be making that determination.
And have we ever researched or reviewed what thresholds are used in other departments?
Through the chair to the councilman, not to my recollection, sir. I know we've had some discussions as we look at other facilities. We're thinking about building a new jail. We've been to various places, and there we kind of ask them what kind of things you send people out for. But as far as having a hard line, a bright line, I think we can all agree that severe chest pains, yeah, you're probably going to go out. Outside of that, I am unsure, and that's probably a good thing for us to follow up on.
Well, Sheriff, I know this is a difficult situation, but appreciate your effort.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could add to that as well, I think that we've heard from Metro Health that
I was wondering where that voice was coming from.
Yeah, hi,
I'm like,
Brendan Riley Doyle.
The sun is beating off of your beautiful gray hair there.
I was wondering what you were going to say there. We've heard from Metro Health that the population that we have in our jail is sicker than in other jails in the state of Ohio. And so I think that's part of the reason why there are more transports. In our renegotiation with Metro Health for the contract extension, you'll remember that one of the things that we talked about was hiring a night supervisor to have somebody there to be able to weigh in on some of these transports and be able to determine whether it was something that could be treated in-house or whether it really needed to go out. Metro Health, I think, has really struggled to fill that position and some of the other higher-end positions that I know, Councilman Gallagher, you had talked with Metro Health about and suggested to them. So I think that's been part of the issue. And to the sheriff's point, I think as a result, Metro Health staff, I think, out of an abundance of caution, will send folks to the main campus rather than keep them there in order to just make sure that that those inmates are safe and also to protect themselves, quite frankly.
Council, if I may just add one thing, Chief Reach just informed me, we just received notification. Sergeants and lieutenants, deputies are needed ASAP due to 5 details and 2 ERs. Call the desk. Right now, there's 5 details at Metro, 2 ERs going out right now. Do the math. 2 deputies per the union contract. That's 24/7.
Just wanted to add, Mr. Chair, also when we talked to the nurse that, I guess, is from Metro, and they don't want to make that call. You know, they wanted the doctors to make the call, which is, and then the other problem I had was Metro in terms of the cost. Because I think I asked a question one time, was it coming out of our indigent levy funds? It's not for the prisoners in the jail, but we're not quite clear how much Metro charges for those chest x-rays and all that stuff. To me, those are indigent individuals at that moment.
Well, the history of that was, the reason we were stuck with the contract we have was, quite honestly and directly, Armand was playing a little tag game with Metro and got caught. And they were going to walk away. So we were in a corner. And out of the goodness and graciousness of Dr. Boutros, they stayed. And the contract is what the contract is. They put it on the table. They told us to sign it a Friday morning, or we'll be out of there Monday. So that's what happened when you go to a knife fight with a gun, I guess, sometimes. And we understand. We understand these things happen. We understand we have the most violent people, the sickest people. We've known that. We understand that. And again, not that it's going to solve everything, but I think the new jail is going to go a long way. I did talk months ago with Metro about getting a physician for Saturday and Sundays for weekends, because the nurses don't want to make that call. And if I was a nurse, I wouldn't want to make that call for fear that it was the wrong call. So everybody gets shipped. So hopefully they can there's some upheaval going on there. Hopefully they can calm that down and figure that out for us. And I would hope that the new contract going forward will be reflective of them being a partner more with us this time. But I can't blame Metro for what they did. It was unacceptable what was happening with them, and we ended up paying the piper, and that's just the way that happened. So I think as you move forward, and again, I would assume you're going to be going to Mr. Miller, you're going to have to tighten up everything and what you got, what you need. And the next time we come around for a budget, I tell every director, ask for what you need. We'll figure it out with you. But you were new, and to a certain extent, didn't understand what was the lay of the land. And we got what we got. But we're going to end up paying anyhow. But it's the ancillary services that are out there that we're not getting paid for. We got to bring those back in-house, clean up our own house, and then when things settle down, hopefully in the new place, we can move forward in a more judicious way.
Thank you, sir.
Was that good? Was that good enough, Yvonne? That's kind of what happened. Nothing else? Sheriff, thank you. Appreciate it.
Councilman, committee, thank you very much. Just want to mention that thank you to my staff, certainly Ms. Donna Khalil from Fiscal. And as far as these extra things that are out there, we just discussed it. The only thing that wasn't budgeted was DSP, but we will get the microscope, look at it, and go see Councilman Miller.
And he'll be quite helpful. He's very good with that. I see Mr. Carbone. You have anything, sir? And Ms. Roche, where is she? It's her birthday.
Oh, she's watching us.
It's her birthday today. Happy birthday, Roche. Oh. We were looking forward to having her because we've now set a precedent with Mr. Miller and his birthday yesterday. So. All right, next up, we have an update. Jail administration, who do we have? We were looking for Mike Dever. Nicole?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think Chief Barry and I can handle whatever questions, address whatever questions you have.
Okay.
Yeah, happy to answer them.
This was an add-on, as I'm sure you're aware. We were surprised to find out some of the machinations going on out there in Garfield Heights that we didn't know about. So we were kind of in the dark. I know you're going through the process of bringing individual council people in to show them where you're at with the jail build, which, as my calculator, this administration is now on the hook for $63 million over cost for not moving quickly. From day one, I told Chris that day one, I'm going to start the clock on you. So we're at $63 million plus. So it's $3 million a month, as you're all aware, as we're all aware, and the sooner we get going, the better off we're going to be. But you're here because how did this happen? And I think Councilwoman Simon has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have several questions, and you could just tell me when the questioning should stop, and we can alternate. Thank you, Chief, for being here. I want to know whose idea was it to build a jail, police headquarters, and municipal court for Garfield Heights at our jail site? Whose idea was that?
So again, I'm Debbie Berry, Chief of Integrated Development in the Executive's Office, and here today because our Public Works team is actually involved in meetings, and we did just find out about this at the last minute, and we are happy to come back and make a more detailed presentation, but obviously I don't have that prepared for today. But in answer to your question through the chair to the councilwoman, we were approached by the city of Garfield, which you obviously know we are building our new facility in their city. They have a very old...
I just asked whose idea it was.
I'm sorry,
Okay,
Garfield approached us.
I understand what the condition is of that facility at the Garfield Heights court. When did you learn about the Garfield Heights? You're saying it's their idea. Who did they approach?
They approached us. I don't know if I know the exact person, Brendan, that was approached. It was not myself. So do you have an answer?
I mean, I think that there were conversations between the mayor and the county executive. Certainly, I've had conversations with the chief of staff at Garfield regarding their need. And I think that And again, I just want to be clear, Councilwoman, no decision has been made.
I understand. I asked you when these conversations, with whom
Respectfully, previously you said, when was the decision made? There was no decision made
When were
to
the
put a jail, the
discussions?
police department, or courthouse.
No, I
on the
asked whose
site.
idea it was.
Understood. I'm just saying no decision has been made.
I heard you, but I want to know when these discussions started.
We've started preliminary discussions with the city approximately 2 months ago in July.
Okay. And those discussions, you were involved with those, Mr. Doyle?
I've attended those
Attended meetings. Okay. And who attended those meetings internally?
Representatives from the county, Public Works.
Sorry.
Public Works, Chief Barry, myself, and representatives from the city of Garfield.
Which representatives from the city of Garfield?
The mayor, the chief of staff, and I can't recall who else may have attended those meetings over the time.
Did these discussions involve anybody other than those you just described, not internal to the administration in Garfield, but any outside parties, including but not limited to developers, business owners, union members?
No business owners, developers, or union members were involved in any of these meetings.
Was anybody from county fiscal involved in meetings?
I believe in the most recent meeting, county fiscal was in attendance, but that was the first meeting that they had been in attendance.
And was anybody from county council privy to these meetings?
No, again, these discussions have been recent, and we, I think, wanted to, well, that's not fair, Councilwoman. There were members of council who were privy to the fact that we were having discussions with the city of Garfield Heights regarding this.
Okay, so you said it just happened, but you told me discussions started in July. That's several months ago. And what council members were privy to these discussions?
Like I said, the discussions have been recent. I would consider July to be recent with regards to those discussions. We've discussed it with the council president. I think preliminarily it was discussed with Councilman Schron because they are both council members who represent the district that Garfield Heights is in, as well as the jurisdiction that oversees the Garfield Heights Municipal Court. And we had not brought anything to council to date because there's nothing that is baked about this yet. There's nothing that we have prepared to be able to even show you regarding this yet, which is why we would prefer that it be fully baked before we come to you with what any kind of proposal might be. Quite frankly, we don't know whether this works for the county. We don't know whether this even works for the city.
Okay, thank you so much,
happen
Mr. Doyle. I understand. I'm not asking you any of that. I asked you what council members were privy to this, and you just said on record that Council President Jones was privy and that Councilman Schron was. Were they involved or present at any meetings that you had internally?
No, we gave both of them the courtesy of a heads up as to
Who's they? Who gave them that courtesy?
I don't know, Councilman.
Did you have a conversation with Council President Jones about this?
I did not.
Did you have a discussion with Councilman Schron about this?
I did not.
Ms. Berry, did you have a conversation with Council President Jones about this?
I spoke to neither of them directly.
Okay,
no.
thank you. Do you know if the executive did?
Yes, the executive spoke to the council president directly, and the deputy or the chief of staff spoke to Councilman Schron directly.
Okay. And so these meetings that you had internally and/or with Garfield Heights representatives, were these in-person meetings?
They were in-person meetings, yes.
Okay. Were any meetings conducted by Zoom or Teams? Any meetings on that level?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Are there text messages that were sent amongst these parties to discuss or enhance discussion about this project?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Was there a decision not to share this MOU with council?
No. There was no decision not to explicitly not share it with council because it's a draft MOU.
Okay.
And the MOU, all it does is authorize us to explore the ability to have discussions with the city of Garfield Heights regarding the possibility of shared services in the interest of things like regionalism.
You understand that council ultimately is the body that's going to authorize any kind of project on the site.
Well aware, Councilwoman, which
Okay.
is why we wanted to be able to have these discussions with Garfield and be able to have something that was more fully baked before we brought it to this body.
So you wanted to have an MOU signed by the administration, by Executive Ronayne in the city of Garfield Heights without informing council that this was happening.
Again, the MOU, by the very language in the MOU, simply states that it lets the county and the city explore the opportunities that could be mutually beneficial to both the county and the city. It does nothing more than that.
So this was behind the back of council negotiations. You came up with an MOU that's very detailed. It's not just some high lofty discussion piece. It actually gives deadlines. It gives numbers. It gives detail. So this isn't something that, should have been left out of council. And you should know better than anybody else that whatever council has to authorize, they should be involved with. So I just want to make that clear.
To be clear, respectfully, Councilwoman, there has been nothing that's been done behind the back of council with regard to this MOU. This MOU, and again, it's a draft. There's no.
We didn't know about this, Mr. Doyle. That was behind our back.
This draft MOU was first sent to the city of Garfield Heights last week.
But not council.
There have been, we were not, like so many other things that the administration does, whether it is even in the jail planning, we wouldn't bring it to the council until it is fully baked.
Okay.
There was nothing to present formally to the council.
Mr. Doyle, I understand
this.
you said it's not fully baked like 5 times. I don't mean to be disrespectful. We understand it's almost baked.
It is not even close to almost baked.
It's true that it was almost baked.
It is not.
You presented it to the city of Garfield Heights
last week
and asked them what the delay is, and they're signing it. I understand that to be true. So this was going to be baked, and it was only on some fluke that council found out, yes, that this existed.
Again,
I'm just telling you that's what happened. So I want to move on.
Nothing can happen with anything with regard to the city of Garfield Heights without this body's approval. Of course. So there's nothing that's been done that's going behind the back of this body.
This is a backdoor memorandum. I'm almost finished, Mr. Chair. Who is Laurel Diaz?
Laurel Diaz is our health and justice equity officer.
And what is her role as it relates to this jail site?
She focuses on both programming, on public health issues, as well as programming both in the current jail and future jail programming.
And who does she report to?
She reports to the county executive.
Directly?
Correct.
I see. And is she aware of this memorandum of understanding with Garfield?
To my knowledge, she has not been a part of any of these discussions regarding the city of Garfield, or even, I can't even recall if she's been at any of the meetings, but she certainly has not been a part of any of the discussions regarding this with Garfield.
So your statement is you don't know if she's aware that there's discussion, MOU, that part of the site, there's a contemplation of building a jail for the city of Garfield Heights? Are you saying she doesn't know about that?
I'll jump in if you don't mind. She is aware that we've had the conversation. She has not been part of any of the negotiation or discussion directly with Garfield.
And so you're aware that she's met with at least 4 council people to talk about the jail site, right?
I didn't know the specifics, but I know she is also reaching out to council and talking about the jail.
And was she told not to bring up this project?
No, not at all.
So when she meets with council people, she omitted this information when talking about what was going to be potentially built on this site. You're shaking your head no, but every council person who's met did not come back with information about this project, even being contemplated. Why is that?
Councilwoman, I think that she has been more focused on the programmatic side of things, and this is a slightly different piece that would be integrated in, but yet somewhat separate. I guess I just want to reiterate that we really put this on paper because it's so complicated that we needed to, even for ourselves, understand what it might take to even contemplate including Garfield on this site. And so the first draft was literally just given to them next week. I know some of the dates seem to be very
I'm going to finish up. Nobody's asking, I'm not asking, about the complexity of this. What's at issue here is purposeful negotiations with the city behind the back of council, and there's a deadline in that memorandum, an expectation in that memorandum that the city of Garfield Heights should sign by October 4th, correct?
That is correct.
And that is about 2 weeks away from today. And had council not found out, the way they found out, that this was happening, that this memorandum would have been signed by the city of Garfield Heights without council's knowledge. That's what would have happened.
I do not know if that is true or not. Again, we are in the process of talking to council members, and again, just at the very start.
I'm sorry, you're in the
thinking about
process of
this.
talking to council members through Ms. Diaz, who's left out this important piece of this project.
And I think some of those meetings happened before we were even aware of this.
Well, you've been talking about this since July.
Again, the MOU does nothing but explore the opportunities
Okay.
that could be available
Mr.
to
Doyle,
both.
the problem is you've kept that secret from council, and this was a purposeful endeavor, and I'm so glad we found out about this. And let me ask you, what would have happened if when this memorandum would have been signed, and this project had to be authorized by council, and council didn't approve it? What was your plan?
Again, the MOU does nothing but authorize the exploration of opportunities between the city and the county. It authorizes nothing more than that. So all it does is authorize us to have conversations regarding.
Okay, I'm going to let council, our chair, move in. But we've already spent money on this project. That's clear. It's in the memorandum. So when you're talking about it's not baked in and all it does is, contemplate this possibility, none of that's true, Mr. Doyle, and you know it. We've spent money on this project without council's authorization. It came out of, I think, tell me where it came out of, because we're building schematics, including these facilities. Where did that money come from to incorporate Garfield Heights' municipal complex?
We're just really scratching the surface to understand what they would need in the process.
Where did the money come from to explore this? Because money has been spent. It states that in the memorandum.
We're working with our design team, so it's
Who's
part of the
paying for
overall
that?
design.
This is a very easy question for somebody from the administration to answer. Who's paying for that? Who paid for it?
It's part of the overall design that we're paying our consultants to work on right now.
So we are using council money that we allocated for the county jail and the county court for Garfield Heights Municipal Complex. And nobody bothered to come to this council to tell us that this was a deviation from that which it was supposed to be used. That's significant. And I'll let the chair proceed, that we're kept in the dark about a memorandum, spending money that we allocated for the county project, not telling us it's being used for Garfield, creating a MOU without telling us, hoping to get it signed by the city and the executive without council finding out. And here we are today, expected at some point to authorize this project. So I'm going to pass it along to the chair.
This really wasn't a good secret. When, I forget, what was the time when the executive went out to Garfield for that morning meeting? I was out there for that. I had heard rumblings back then, that quite a while ago, I think it was.
Last year.
Months ago. So, and then I had actually heard about it before that. And various people just talking. But was work done on this for buildings for Garfield, like schematically, or?
Mr. Chair, we are just in discussions with Garfield about what their needs might be to see if we could incorporate them and what kind of economies of scale could be built if we were to incorporate them.
So there weren't any mock-ups or?
We've started to look at what a site plan could look like if they could be part of it, but there has been no detailed design. And again, just understanding what their program would be and how it would fit into our program.
Well, and again, I'll share my frustration. This is month 16 of this administration. Or no, it's, what month is it? 12, and we're 9/21? And we're talking about potential. This was shovel ready to go, and now and I understand and you're new, you don't understand.
You don't understand.
All of the things that you're doing now, and I've shared my frustration. We're done. Everything, meeting with groups and organizations, and everything was done. It was ready to go. Then we had an election, and that screwed everything up. We're like, okay, we're ready to go. We're going to hand it to you.
But ready to go, I apologize, Mr. Chair. Again, a program was developed. All of that is being incorporated into the work we're doing now. Now it's about laying those pieces out as to how they fit together, literally synergistically in the site itself, in the building itself. That work would have had to been done no matter what. That's the point that we're at right now.
Do you know when we started this project?
I don't know exactly because I was not here.
5 years ago. 5 years ago. And some of that's on us. Some of that's on us. But this is on you guys. This is on you guys. 19, month 19. And we're talking to, I got to go back to Berea, who needs a courthouse.
Sure.
You think they're not going to read about this and ask me why I'm not harping for a courthouse?
Well, this
or
does.
Police station?
Mr. Chairman,
I mean, everybody up here needs something.
We understand.
But everybody up here understands we're in this for Cuyahoga County as a whole, globally. I think that way. And while I would love to help Garfield Heights out, I've also heard it said publicly that we might not have enough money for a justice center and a jail. And we do. We do. It's called the 0.25%. And we guardrailed that because we suspected things like this might occur or could occur. And I know that wasn't well received in the executive suite. I don't care. I'm here to guardrail the money of the citizens of Cuyahoga County to provide services for Cuyahoga County first. So I don't know if that makes me a Cuyahoga County MAGA guy, but
we understand.
That is my focus. And I understand many of you people are new and you're trying to get this thing together. But from my perspective, 19 months is ridiculous. When we were ready to go, set to jet, all of a sudden it just came to a screeching halt. Fine, it is what it is. Now we're here. And I told the executive, January 1st, you were walking into your room with flowers on your desk and this problem taken care of. Or you're going to walk in with a huge problem on your desk and no solution. And here we are 19 months later with no solution. And then we hear this. I mean, get in my shoes for a moment, or any of our shoes. We got to go explain this to our communities and why Garfield Heights being treated differently than some of the others. And it probably isn't, but perception's reality, and the perception is that they're being treated differently. We're doing a magnificent thing for Garfield Heights. It's going to save them financially. We all know that. And we're unfortunately there. I wish we were in Cleveland, but things happened, against our will. And again, 19 months is unacceptable to me. I just wish you guys would get going. I mean, all this fluff and stuff. Build a building. What did I read in that MOU? A cold, dark shell. Give me a cold, dark shell for Cuyahoga County and Garfield Heights, or for Cuyahoga County in Garfield Heights. And the other stuff comes later if we can afford it. If we can afford it. I looked at that. I don't think Garfield Heights can afford that because I don't think many cities can afford that. I would assume they're picking up what we would be bonding.
That's correct. If we were to go forward, that would be.
We were to go forward,
yes,
but the administration's willing to look at that, but not Brook Park and the Browns thing. We're not going to bond that because that's just not right. See how you're putting us in a bind? Because somebody's got to go back to Brook Park and express to them how they're being treated fairly.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think the only reason we looked at this is because we are building a jail correctional facility in the city of Garfield Heights. They had a need to do the same. And so we wanted to explore whether there were synergies of doing that as opposed to looking at Cuyahoga County and taxing the taxpayers in that community twice to build their own.
I get it.
If they could fit into ours.
I get it. If there's
it may not work.
Again, if there's a winner coming out of this, it's Garfield Heights. If this doesn't happen, the winner is Garfield Heights. So, I mean, we've done quite enough. And if we can do more, we would do more. But I personally don't think that 0.25% is going to cover that. I think the executive's correct on that. We got to be careful with the bottom line. And the bottom line is a justice center and a jail.
Correct.
And you can run around talking about campuses and fluff and stuff. I don't care. But when it comes down to brick and mortar and cost, 19 months ago, it was $2.5 million a month. Now we're at $3 million a month. And this isn't new. Day one, the first meeting of 5 years ago, I was on video, on record, telling that committee, who didn't give a damn, and I don't even know why they were even there, that time is money. And at that time, it was about $1 million a month. And that dragged on. And again, it was a cluster. But in the end, we came up with a solution, and then that got killed. Not by us. It got killed. And here we are again, 19 months. This is what the average citizen looks at their elected officials and their government and say it doesn't work. This is the prime example. And, you know, you obviously have some people up here that are pretty unhappy about how it came about and why it came about. And you've put some of us in a bullseye with our communities where we're going to have to go explain this. And I don't really appreciate it. I really don't. I think everybody should be treated fairly. And in this instance, it looks like the check mark's going to, or the thumb on the scale's going to Garfield Heights. For what reason, I don't know. I think we're doing them a favor. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, met with you, Mr. Doyle, and a few other people for update on the jail. Saw nice slides. This is where some pipes are going to go, and all that. And just through by what you had said, you'd already been talking to Garfield Heights, but none of that was mentioned. I mean, I don't understand why, if you're updating council members and there's a possibility, why we didn't hear about that.
Well, so I guess I would, yes, that's correct, Councilman, that we did update you. We've updated Councilman Miller and also Councilman Byrne. Appreciate all three of you sitting down with staff to get updates on the work that's being done. I think that, there's been a lot of work that's been going into this by, Nicole English, the project manager, and others. So it's been hardly them sitting on their hands, until now, doing nothing. So I so appreciative that you were able to sit down with staff to hear about it. I think, again, we were not in a place right at that moment to present anything regarding any possibility of shared services with Garfield. It was certainly not to deceive anybody or to, to omit anything. It was simply because we had nothing to share yet, and didn't even know if we'd be in a place where we would have something to share. We didn't know if it was something that would work for the county or even if it would work for the city. So we at that point wanted to just share the work that had been done by the Public Works team, by the programming team, to talk about the site itself and the utility work and everything else that had been done, as well as the thinking and the thoughtfulness that had been going into the future programming in that facility.
Okay, so, and then at the end of that conversation, I believe I said, so that's it? And the answer was, yeah, that's it. Well, it wasn't it at the time. Don't you think this is going to open a can of worms for other communities that have a municipal court already that need some work, done? I can show you one that needs some work done. I don't know. This does not sound like a good idea to me.
Mr. Chair, to the councilman, do you think there is a difference of us adding to what we may be building versus building something entirely different in a different community? I mean, I think that's the only reason we were exploring this, because there is a project that's on the table. It does serve 8 different municipalities. While it resides in Garfield Heights, their court serves multiple communities. And so, again, we wanted to look at a good regional strategy, look at perhaps a savings on both sides if there was economies of scale. By no way has a determination been made. By no way is an MOU signed. We have not even received any comments back from the city to know if they, want to keep going forward. But we had to put something down to at least ask the question to see if it made any sense, again, from a regional perspective, from the good of Cuyahoga County.
And the legislation said the county jail and the courthouse. Period.
Understood, and we would have absolutely brought all of this back to you, and we're prepared to do so. And again, if we had had good information and good financial numbers to back it up, it might have been something you would want to consider. We can't say that until we talked to you, but we didn't really have any information until we started a conversation to know if that would make sense.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Can't say I like it, but okay. Thank you.
I was just, is it my turn?
You ready?
Yeah,
Yes,
I was just wondering if that same consideration would have been given the city of Cleveland. If the site had been picked there, would we have helped them out with their courthouse? So we have to think of these things, and I think I want to ask that Public Works do an assessment of the courthouse in East Cleveland. And 'cause if any jail or courthouse needs a new one, would be that one. So I would be willing to give them, because it's probably bricks just holding up the wind. So I think Public Works should do an assessment of all the courthouses and jails in the county, and let's see who really is in need.
And Councilwoman, again, we were not looking at their need, we were just looking at the opportunity of where we were building. And we do share a jail with Cleveland, and again, are looking to design them, I think, as a user of the new facility, if needed.
Mr. Chair, you've both been put in a very awkward position, and I'm trying to be as understanding as possible. I have this MOU in front of me here, and it says the MOU is intended to provide a basis for the preparation of the definitive agreement or agreements. So I think that's what you were leading into, Brendan, is that this is just a preparation. However, right above it in bold print, this MOU must be fully negotiated and agreed to by the parties no later than October 4th, 2024. So for me personally, if I hadn't seen the date on there, I think I could go along and give you as well as the executive the benefit of the doubt. However, being a former mayor, one of the worst things you can do is keep your council in the dark. And I think that's exactly what's happened here. And when we're not involved in the process, when council's not involved in the process, we may interpret things a little bit differently than if they were brought to us in the meeting that Councilman Kelly and I were when we attended you. So the only suggestion I can make for you going back to Executive Ronayne is communication, communication, communication. You've both done a wonderful job here today, and I appreciate the effort. But I would encourage you to encourage the executive to please, as that we move forward and in the future, to communicate, to have better communications, open line of communications with council.
Understood, Councilman.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Just for clarification, Mr. Chair, the memorandum does state that that money has been incurred. The county's incurred costs for preliminary design of the Garfield City uses, while negotiations will continue. So we have spent money on this. Originally, our jail site only required 40 acres. The executive decided to buy 71, and there were several council members who questioned the wisdom of that and why. We were given several presentations, including but not limited to those from Mr. Dever, other staff members, saying what the vision was for this land, this 71 acres. One was farm to table, walking paths, other types of rec for the people who are residing there for 30 to 60 days. All kinds of ideas, reentry and sheriff's offices, which I hope can go. But now we're hearing that none of those things are going to happen because now we've somehow morphed to that vision, which I questioned to begin with because of the cost, and so did the chair of this committee. Now we're talking about, without presenting to us, which I find so interesting because it was a persuasive argument why we needed 71 acres to this council body, and gave us all these ideas, but this idea was kept secret. That's interesting to me. And it's interesting to me is we really didn't need 71 acres because now we're going to hear an argument, well, and I think you said it, it was mutually beneficial. The county can get some money and we'll get a lease back. And so that's the justification for this, I anticipate, is that in order to float these bonds and pay for them, we need to rely on the revenue coming from lease payments from the city of Garfield Heights. Has anybody looked at their bond rating? I am just astounded at this reversal, and I question whether this is really a reversal, whether this was a plan from the beginning between the executive and the mayor, maybe, to build this for the city of Garfield Heights, because the chair said it's been no secret really out on the street. So this whole presentation to this council to buy into 71 acres that we don't need, that's going to cost us tons of money. Talk about overtime. We heard from the sheriff, this is going to quadruple. I can't even imagine the cost now to take the prisoners from the Justice Center. It's going to be downtown to this site. So this is costly, and now we're reversing everything that which we were told this was going to be for. I just want to state that. And at what point were you going to tell us? What point? What do you call, what point? We're 2 weeks away when this was supposed to be signed and pressured on the city of the Garfield Heights to sign it. Were you going to wait till it was signed? And then what? I'm just putting it out there because I know I'm pretty clear about the answer. I'm pretty clear. They were going to wait till this was signed and then decide to show it to council. And then we would be stuck in a box maybe in your mind to have to authorize all of this. And it's a detriment and disservice to the city of Garfield Heights to have them sign a document without council knowing about it. And that's what happened.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, we have gotten no feedback on the document from Garfield Heights yet. So again, we don't even know if they would be interested in signing it. And we did meet with the two council people who have jurisdiction over these areas and alerted them that we were having this conversations and just
What two
made them
council people
aware.
did you meet with?
Again, Council President Pernell Jones and Councilman Jeff
Who met,
Shawn.
you told me that you didn't meet with them.
I did not meet
And
with
that Mr. Doyle did not meet with them.
That's correct.
And so your testimony here is that you know firsthand that the executive met with them in person to talk about this project.
Yes.
You're testifying on behalf of the executive.
For the council president, correct. And I said earlier that the chief of staff talked with Councilperson Shawn.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, that's my bad. Absolutely, you did say Mr. Janis spoke with Councilman Shawn about it. But, yeah, so that, I have nothing more to say at this point.
And I just want to say one other note. This was not a secret. We're not doing anything in secret. The staff has a lot of work to move forward. We move it forward. We meet with council when we can. And again, the dates are forthcoming, so we were going to talk to you. We obviously understand.
Well, you
that
were
council has
talking to
approval.
council members. You talked to my colleague, Mr. Kelly. You talked to my other, Ms. Diaz spoke with council members. You had repeated meetings, and you had plenty of opportunity to share this possibility. And all these other things you told us about with 71 acres when you presented this project to us was all possibility. It wasn't baked in. All these walking paths, farm to, table, all of these were ideas that you felt, not you necessarily, but the executive team, it was important to sell it to this council. But now you have this idea that's almost going to be signed with an MOU, but you don't tell us because it's not baked in. You can't have it both ways. You can't decide now you don't need to share things with this council. And you're going to hear that the city of Garfield Heights was shocked that the council was not apprised of this and that they were ready perhaps to sign a document without the backing and knowledge of this council, the ones who ultimately are going to decide whether a project proceeds. So, the contrast in ideas and sharing of council, it's discriminate to when you're going to share and when you're not. And this is a pretty big deal because we had a vision that you sold. I didn't vote for it because I didn't think it was going to happen. All these visions, and it's right, because now we're scrambling, it appears, to make this use out of 71 acres by building a facility for the city of Garfield Heights. And I'm going to tell you, the city of Euclid has been drained of resources by moving this jail so far. And we have put their safety at risk. We've jeopardized the county boundary with Lake County. And I've talked about it, I had presentations, and now we're going to put money into a new facility for Garfield Heights after already enriching them with revenue, income tax for decades. And we're going to leave Euclid in the hole without a jail? I don't think so. I'm going to suggest that this MOU be ripped up until you come properly before this council and discuss it with us. We're a co-equal branch, and we've been kept in the dark deliberately.
I would just like to say nothing has been deliberate. We've been, again, just working on trying to get some details so we could come to you with information.
I appreciate your position. I just don't agree.
It's fair.
Tough day, huh?
Not my favorite day.
And again, you're somewhat new. We've been at this a long time, and it's some of us, it's beaten us down to the point where you kind of kick the ground and you almost don't care anymore, but we're not quite there yet. And if I could give you any bit of advice, if you're willing to take it, is to build the jail. Just build the jail.
We absolutely intend to do that.
And don't say we might not have enough money for a justice center, because I got a beehive down there in Lakeside that's going to go off if they hear that, and they would be right. They would be right. So this is a delicate dance we're doing here, and it hasn't been good. It has not been good. This is not a successful start to this massive project that we were ready to do. So if I could, again, build the jail. Just build the jail. Incorporate the sheriff and his team into this. You know, again, I understand it's important to get the opinions of everybody that's out there in the community that's involved in this, fine. But they're not going to alter what the jail is going to look like. Maybe alter a little bit what's in the jail. But again, I go back to, we're ready to go. And we all signed off on it. And that was a group of people that couldn't really look outside and say the sky is blue. We all agreed on it. And you're belt and suspendering this thing. It's been done. The information's there. All you have to do is look at it. Let's get going. Build the jail. And we want to be your partners. I don't know why I don't want to get to a point where we're not talking. But sadly, we're at a point where we're not talking. And I don't think it's healthy for any of us to do that. And again, I feel sorry for you having to stand there and take this. I wish Mike Dever were there. I have more fun with him. And I don't feel as bad. But I think the council's really telling you, build the jail.
Thank you, we will.
You know, forget everything else. Everything else will come in time. But the jail's the important thing. And you were here, I believe, when we were talking to the sheriff.
Correct.
It's going to help us immensely. And in my book, we're 19 months behind, and that's not good. So, and if you need anything, please let us know. We're here to help.
Thank you.
We're here to help. And you're not the only administration we've said that to. Every administration we've said that to. And sometimes they took us up on it, and sometimes they didn't. So please, just build the jail.
Thank you. And I very much appreciate that. Communication is important, so I would agree.
I know everybody's heart's in the right place, but our pocketbooks are getting creamed here. It gets creamed. And 5 years ago, I was frustrated. Now I'm even more frustrated. And I think people just look at me like I'm crazy. I'm that, sky's falling guy. And it is. It's literally falling on us. And we are getting to a dangerous point where costs are going so bad that maybe a justice center is on a teeter-totter. And it shouldn't be. Shouldn't be. We should be talking about the justice center now while the jail's being built. And we're not. So in the future, please share with us. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a follow-up question. When I asked who was in these meetings, if I can, Mr. Chair, is the sheriff, anybody from the sheriff's office in those planning meetings? And was the sheriff privy to this MOU?
I believe the sheriff was privy to the MOU. Some of the staff from the sheriff's office who is working on the jail was part of the conversation, yes.
Which staff from the jail? I mean, from the sheriff's office, do you know?
AW Phil Christopher, I believe, was in some of these meetings. He's the point person out of the sheriff's office that's been working with us. I believe he was in that meeting. There's just a lot of meetings.
Okay, thank
So I
you.
apologize.
And just lastly, Councilman Kelly brought up his legislation that council supported with restricting the 0.25% sales tax for purposes solely for the county jail and the county courthouse. I would like to ask the law director, if I could, about his opinion about this MOU and using county funds from the sales tax to fund the building of a Garfield Heights Municipal Complex.
Hi, Greg Huth with the Law Department.
Hi. Did you draft the MOU?
I did.
Okay, and who asked you to draft that?
All the folks who've been talking here.
Ms. Berry and Mr. Doyle?
Yeah, yes.
Executive?
I didn't have a conversation with him directly, no.
Okay, and so were you aware that council was not involved with those discussions?
I wouldn't have been aware of that.
Okay.
It's not something I would have been aware of.
That's fair. When you drafted that MOU, did you acknowledge that council passed the Kelly, we call it the Kelly legislation
That's
on
what we call it,
Tuesday?
is the Kelly
On
legislation.
Tuesday.
Yeah. Mhm.
I'm mad about that because it could have been the Simon ordinance when we passed the sales tax, but I'll give Mr. Kelly credit.
Yeah.
What, so you're aware that passed Tuesday, but yet there was a MOU sent over to Garfield Heights, which seems to not be consistent with the funding that we set forth.
Madam Chairman of the Council, Mr. Chairman of the Council, that legislation, as I understand it, tells the county what the 0.25% can be used for.
Yeah.
So if there are other sources out there that could be used to fund this piece of it, that would still be, in my opinion, it'd still be consistent with.
I see.
Now,
So
I haven't had that conversation with bond counsel.
Okay.
Or with the law director.
Okay, so what do you envision for that? Like having float the bond for the building of this and have the funding come through lease payments from Garfield Heights?
That would be one way of doing it, yes.
Mhm. To avoid using any of
Right.
the 0.25% to get around that.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, thanks, everybody, for being here. And hopefully, we've now cleared the air, I hope. And we're well on our way to building a jail. Miscellaneous business?